Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DMTALES, and today I'm going to be reviewing probably my favorite TTRPG book of all time. But before that, I need to give a shout out to my sponsor, Daddy Rolled One, who created this wonderful t-shirt featuring a D20 fighting off some vicious dice goblins. Daddy Rolled One is a fantastic follow on Twitter. He also blogs about his experiences in running various role-playing games. But more importantly, he has a web store. And if you go to his store, you can find designs like this one, including many others for t-shirts and other merchandise. And if you use the code DMTALES, that's right, I'm a discount code now, so yay me, you'll get 15% off your purchase. So go visit Daddy Rolled One's web store and let him know DMTALES sent you. It's great for my channel, and it's a wonderful opportunity for you to support a small creator doing some really cool stuff. Let's get to the review. So what is this incredible TTRPG book that I love so much? It is Art and Arcana. This book was written by Michael Witwer, Kyle Newman, John Peterson, and Sam Witwer. Now, I reviewed Game Wizards last year, which is actually written after this book, and that highlights the story of TSR from the inception of D&D in its original edition, all the way through just before second edition when Gary Gygax gets ousted from the company. And in a lot of ways, Art and Arcana is a companion piece to that story. But it's not talking about the personalities behind the development of the game or the businesses of TSR. It's talking about the artist and the art that goes into all of these various editions and shows how it evolved over time. It's a fantastic work, and I am really pleased to take a look at it with you today. Art and Arcana is a huge tome. It is 440 pages long, stitched binding, so it lays out flat on the table. And its physical dimensions are rather oversized. It is 9.27 inches wide and 12.2 inches tall. This very much feels like it should be laid out on a coffee table. It's huge. And when it was delivered, I could not believe how heavy the box was. This is not meant to sit on a shelf. It really needs to be admired as art. And yes, I am gushing. But when you open up the cover and you see that the inside cover page is the village of Hamlet, and then you look on the back page, and this is one of Errol Otis's favorite paintings of all time for D&D, gushing will happen. So let's take a look at the book. One of the nice features about Art and Arcana is that each chapter is named with a well-known D&D spell. They are Detect Magic, which is dealing with OD&D, Pyrotechnics, which is first edition AD&D, and also includes some basic and expert stuff by Mulvey and Cook. Explosive Ruins, which is the Crash of 1983, and also introduces the artwork of the Orange Spine releases and Mentzer's revisions to basic and expert, which become Beckme. Polymorph Self talks about the transition to second edition, and Bigby's Interposing Hand covers the final revisions of second edition and the explosion of settings which helped to trigger TSR's end, even as they were creating all this amazing art and product. Reincarnation is post-WotC pickup, and it deals with third edition. I am not even going to pronounce this word because I never can pronounce it no matter how hard I try, and I'm going to embarrass myself, but I'll try it anyway. Let's see. Simulacrum. Nope, that's not right. Oh well. But this covers D&D 3.5 edition and DDM, which are the Dungeons & Dragons miniatures, which were trying to bring back in that miniature aspect of the game. Maze, which, given how so many people respond to 4th edition, both players of the newer editions and older ones, kind of makes sense. This covers 4th edition. And Wish is 5e, looking into the future. Now, I won't spoil the way that the book handles material, but the way it presents the prolific output of artwork and how the product trends impacted the art is really cool. It does it with great clarity, and it's an interesting story to follow, even as you marvel at the look of the book. Now, interspersed inside the main story and the publication of the various editions are smaller features that exist in different spreads throughout the book. These break up the overall story and are a joy to look at in their own right. And I'll take a look at these really quick. The first of these is called Ology, which looks at the story behind certain pieces of art and tries to explain not only how they were developed, but how they evolved over time. Some of the Artology sections are going to be only 1 or 2 pages, and some, like this one, will be 3 or 4, leading to cool double-page spreads like this. Let me get that so it's no glare. Really, really fun. As you go through the book, you will also see this badge from time to time, and these mark artist favorites. So the different artists who are working on the product at the time, this is them saying, this is the one I'm most proud of. So it's cool to see what Errol Otis and Darlene and Tom Wham were thinking of. This is really the highlight of my art career at TSR or WotC for D&D. And it's a nice feature to see really what the artists appreciate. We know what we like, but it's neat to see what they really are proud of. Another fascinating feature is Deadliest Dungeons, which is a look at some of the most iconic D&D maps, particularly the old school ones. And what's cool is that they sometimes don't even have the printed version, but they have the hand-drawn version that was originally used at the tournaments where Tomb of Horrors was run. And sometimes they put the published map next to the hand-drawn map just to see how they evolved. This is done for the village of Hamlet, for example. But it's neat to look at the original maps that are being used for D&D way back in the day, because map drawing is very much part of D&D's artwork, every bit as much as all the fantasy art depicting monsters and locales. Probably my favorite of the features inside Art and Arcana is called Evolution. I have this angled weirdly because I don't want to get the glare on the page for you who are viewing it at home. But what Evolution does is show the evolution of a famous creature throughout the history of the editions, all the way from OD&D up until 5th edition. Unfortunately, BX is left out of this listing. It kind of is a sidebar to the development of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but even still, this is a really cool thing. And to look at how the dragon evolved, the Beholder is done, the Demigorgon is in here. It's really neat to see how they adjusted over time as artwork styles changed and as the things people are expecting from artwork also changed. Really, really cool. Going along with Evolution is Many Faces Of, and this is looking at particular adversaries or characters that are famous for D&D in the various editions that they appear in. And this page here is of Loth, and you can see her all the way from 1978 all the way up until 2008, the different artwork that is used to depict her. Mine that I came in with first was this one here from Queen of the Demon Web Pits in the version of the module that I had. Now it's neat to see how these old enemies were remembered throughout the various editions. It shows a continuity of thought even as play mechanics and styles changed. And then finally, the last of the really interesting ones is called Sundry Lore. And this looks at various cool D&D art stories that are not necessarily fitting into the larger narrative of the unveiling of the various editions. But they're still pretty cool to ponder, like this one here, which talks about some of the earliest miniatures that came out for the game way back in the day. And I love that first edition AD&D Demigorgon. Really, really cool. You can pick up Art and Arcana over on Amazon for $27 right now. That is really cheap for a book that size. There is a Kindle edition for it, but this really is something that is not designed to be looked at on an e-reader. This wants to be laid out on a table, or if you can stomach it, on your lap and just paged through. I literally cannot stop reading this book anytime I pick it up. In fact, for this review, I had intended to just scan through it to remind myself how it was set up and the various features that are involved. And I ended up reading the whole thing from cover to cover again in about a day and a half. Now, that seems a little bit bigger than it is. There's not a whole lot of text on each page, but it's still time consuming and I enjoyed every minute of it. If you are wondering what my recommendation is for this book, it is this. Go buy this now. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just go get the book. It is that good. Now, next week, I'm going to be looking at a book that's quite a bit smaller. I'm going to be looking at the Morgansfort campaign for Basic Fantasy RPG. This is something that viewers of this channel wanted me to look at, and I'm glad to finally be able to do it. Until then, happy playing, everyone.